If I started all again, if I started Pokemon investing from scratch again, this is what I'd do. Now, I suppose you could take this as almost beginner's advice if you were starting out. And I guess this comes from a place of an extremely long journey with a lot of failures and a lot of learning. And hopefully, my mistakes that I've learned how to do things better can be passed on to you. So if you're starting your journey fresh, like you're a week into it, or you're just keen to get into the hobby now, maybe you can take these pieces of advice and it can prove to be a more enjoyable, fun, fruitful journey for yourself. And I think I've sort of broken this down into 5 basic steps. So I guess we better get started. Step number 1. Actually, before we do, I'm trying to put this plug in each video just to say thank you to everyone that's watching. The channel seems to be going pretty well. Hopefully it continues that way. I'm certainly not going anywhere. The Pokemon and Pokemon investing videos will keep coming. Going to start very rare. I want to keep down the path, but I will be doing the odd booster box opening. So I will do the first one of those soon. If you'd like to see it, great. If it's not really your style and you prefer the investing content, don't stress. There'll still be heaps of that. But what I'm asking is, please subscribe if you haven't done so. It'll mean a lot. Advice number 1. I think the very first thing you should do before you even start the Pokemon investing journey is invest in yourself. Now, I know that sounds super cliche, but what I mean by that is invest the time in yourself to know what you're doing. Not only should you invest in some Pokemon knowledge or some Pokemon investing knowledge, so to speak, you should also invest in knowledge regarding investing full stop. Like, I hear this being said all the time that investing isn't really, or not even investing, money skills full stop aren't really taught in schools that much. And if they are, they seem to have been done or do get done quite poorly. So it leads us down this garden path of, what's money? How do I use money properly? How do I make it? How do I spend it? How do I invest it? And it becomes quite confusing. So the point is, work out exactly, step 1, some time, just put some time to yourself. Put some time into the game. Get some runs on the board, so to speak, before you start the journey. So how exactly does investing work? And then more specifically, how exactly does Pokemon investing work? And when you figure that out, you should work out if it's right for you or not. The very first thing. Because here's an example, right? So Pokemon cards don't even pay dividends. It's basically capital appreciation. So you buy the card, the single, or the sealed product, and over time it goes up in value. And then you need to sell it to someone else who's going to buy it for more than what you've paid for it. That's the only way you're going to make money off it in terms of an appreciating sealed or single product. It's not going to pay you dividends throughout the journey. And what could inevitably happen is, here's an example, right? Someone could get into the hobby, they could drop $3,000 on sealed product or singles, and then after a year, they sort of see that it hasn't really moved. So then they think, oh, well, this is stupid, I haven't made any money. Then they've got to sell it. Maybe they've got to sell it at a slight loss, so a little bit lower than what they paid for it. Then they cop things like eBay fees or some other transactional fees to sell the product, and they go, I've just turned $3,000 into $2,200. Like, I've lost $800 in 12 months. This is stupid. Stuff the hobby. Just like what happens in the share market. If you don't know the share market, you don't know the ins and outs of it, and you're just investing in stocks willy-nilly because you don't know the company you're putting the money behind, all of a sudden, you spend $5,000 on shares, and in 12 months' time, those shares are worth $4,000. Then you got a couple of brokerage fees to sell, and you go, well, that was stupid. Share market sucks. I just spent $5,000 and I've lost $1,200. And then you just exit from the hobby and never seem to come back, or you exit from the share market and never seem to come back. So you need to ask yourself, is it right for you before you even go into it? Because it doesn't pay dividends. And once you know if it's right for you, how much can you spend? And that sort of leads me into, so that's advice number 1, invest in yourself, invest in the time in yourself to learn the hobby, learn about investing full stop, and then more specifically, learn about Pokemon investing. And I think, to cycle back to that question, is it right for you? You should have some passion for the hobby. Don't just do it because you think it's a get rich quick scheme, because it's certainly not. Do it because you have passion for it. Do it because you enjoy collecting it. That's going to make the journey a heap more fun. Step number 2, Step number 2. I suppose when I was talking about how much can you spend in that step number 1, that's what I really want to focus on for part number 2 is, I suppose you could use the term set and forget. So think about how much money you can apply to the hobby, and don't be stupid about it. Like, just don't be. And I've got an example on step number, or advice number 3, about being stupid about it. But set and forget a certain amount of money, whether that's $100 a week, or $200 a week, or $20 a week, or $10 a week. Set that aside into a separate account, would be my bit of advice. Don't make yourself spend that amount each week. Set it aside into a separate account so when a deal comes up, you can capitalize on that deal. Black Friday sales have come out, and yes, there wasn't that many great Black Friday sales, or these new TikTok deals that are coming up, which we again miss out on in Australia, but you get what I mean. Save it there, so when the product you want comes up at the price point you want, like a ripper deal below recommended retail price, you can jump on it, because then you're getting into the hobby or into the investment side of it at such a low entry price that your risk is just so minimized. So that's advice number 2. Get a budget, how much you can spend. I always recommend it should be somewhere like 5% of your, maybe 5% of your investments should be put into something like a hobby like Pokemon. There's other people that jump in a lot more headfirst than what I do and spend heaps on it. Maybe an uncomfortable amount for myself, but set and forget, even if it is $10 a week, you know what? Every 3 weeks or 4 weeks, that might buy you a couple of blisters of the latest set. And then you start building a sealed set of blisters, and you still get that capital appreciation over time, like 3-pack blisters. So you're still enjoying the hobby and having fun with it. You're just not doing it at a level, because I can tell you what, no matter what level you're at, there's probably always going to be someone that's doing it higher than you and spending more money. Advice number 3, and I said I'd use an example on this one, is avoid temptation. Like, don't FOMO. And particularly, and this is the example I'll use, particularly don't put yourself into any sort of financial hardship or debt over Pokemon cards. They're just pieces of cardboard. As exciting as they are, as exciting it is to pull a Secret Illustration Rare Charizard, or a base set Charizard, or a first edition Neo Genesis Lugia, they're still just pieces of cardboard. And this is the example I wanted to use, right? On the Poke Investing subreddit, and I feel sorry for you, man, whoever you are. Like, who knows if you watch me or not? You probably don't at all. But if you are, I feel sorry for you, man, because I saw this post and you put up, like, here's my sealed collection. Okay, and it was super modern. Like, I think it was, Obsidian Flames booster boxes, and maybe some English 151 UPCs, and maybe some English 151 Elite Trainer boxes, etc. And I don't know how much value was there, $1,500 or $2,000 maybe. I'm not completely sure. But anyway, it was, how do I go about selling my sealed collection? Because I have a bill to pay, which was, I think, for their pet, maybe their dog or something needed surgery. I can't afford, I need to sell my collection to be able to pay for this. I'm just like, man, like, shouldn't have done that. You shouldn't have invested into Pokemon if you've got other more important things in life that you can put money towards, like building up an emergency fund in case something like that happens to a pet or a loved one or something else, or yourself. Like, this hobby should be spare money. Don't FOMO and try and jump on this bandwagon. The same thing happened with, some of the cryptocurrencies. I've had friends that pump money into those and lost significant amounts of money because, and look, I'm not saying it can't be successful. There's crypto multi-millionaires and billionaires out there. There's guys that have made multi-millions off Pokemon. That's not really my point. Is, don't FOMO and jump in and tip money that you don't have into it just because you think it might be a get-rich-quick scheme, because for the most part, it's certainly not. That is piece of advice number 3. Number 4, I think if you're just starting out, or if I restarted, I would maybe adjust my risk tolerance. And what I mean by that is, if I've done all the research, well, not all the research, you can never do enough research, can you? You can still learn every day. But if you feel like you've got a fair grasp on the hobby, and you know what's going to be investable, and you know what eventually will go up in price over time, then you should weigh up that And this is what I mean by adjusting risk tolerance. You should weigh up that risk versus opportunity cost. So if I don't spend my money on this, I might miss out. Now that might sound counterintuitive to my previous point, which is don't FOMO. But what I meant by don't FOMO is don't tip money and you don't have. If you've got the money there and you feel there's an opportunity to make more money, that's the whole idea behind investing, then you should weigh up that risk and opportunity cost. Like when Japanese 151 hit the market and you could buy them at 220 Australian, I went risk versus opportunity. I probably tipped a little bit more money into it than what I felt was comfortable. But in the same token, I thought to myself, if I don't put it in there, what happens if it never gets reprinted? And I know that might sound like FOMO, but it's calculated risk and potential upside and opportunity. And I thought to myself, even if it does get reprinted, so this is 220 Australian I'm talking, which is like, what's that work out to be? 135, 140 US a box, sealed, Japanese, 151. I thought to myself, even if it does get reprinted, is it ever going to go below that price? It's such a stellar set. It is the best Pokemon card to set, particularly the Japanese set, to come out since EVA Heroes, like full stop. And look what EVA Heroes has done. And it's the nostalgia's behind the 151, the Master Ball Hollows. Like, I won't go into the ins and outs of how good that set is. My point is that risk versus opportunity cost. So I probably tipped a fair bit more money than what I felt comfortable into Japanese 151 booster boxes at 220 Australian, but I didn't want to miss out on the opportunity that it could bring. And if the money's there and you're young, hey, sometimes that risk tolerance should come into consideration if the money's there. Point number 5, or the last thing I would do if I restarted, would be to be extremely specific about what I purchase and when I purchase it. And I think this sort of ties into the previous 4 points quite nicely, in that if you've done your due diligence and research, you should know roughly what should be a pretty good set and what should perform well. Not only should you know that, but you should know about market cycles and what the typical print runs is of sets. And look, I know that stuff's not set in stone, but we know, buying singles at launch or, buying PSA graded copies at launch of a set is just silly because they're at their all-time high and they'll dip. Same with sealed product, like there is right times to buy it. Thinking about when deals come up, there's right times to buy it. So I would be so much more specific about what set I park my money into and when I buy it. Because if you buy it at the complete dip, I mean, what else can go wrong? Like, I don't think, unless it goes to zero, which I don't think it ever will be, this franchise has been going for 25 plus years, I think it'll be okay. So they're my 5 pieces of advice. I hope everyone learnt something. If you're just starting out in the journey, enjoy it, have fun. I'm Michael, this is Poke Oz, and I'll catch everyone next time.